Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Nathan Fox, one of the founders of lsatdemon.com and the weekly podcast Thinking LSAT. With me today is Josh Mansfield, a teacher with LSAT Demon. We have an email from Nathaniel who asks about potential reasons for my sudden score decline.
I'll read Nathaniel's email, but I've got a story to tell.
All right.
Hey guys, I took the November LSAT this past November, and I am very startled by it. Less than a week before the official LSAT, I took a full practice test using the Demon and got a 159. But then on the official test, again, less than a week later, I got a 154.
That's nothing. That's well within the normal range of normal variance. I mean, when they publish LSAT scores, they don't just publish one number, they publish a range. So, and the range is plus or minus 4 that they report. Yep. So a 159 is actually a 155 to a 163.
Yep.
And that 154 is actually a 150 to a 158. And there's an overlap in those two ranges because there's just always variance. That's completely normal variance. That's nothing.
You're going to like this next slide. As you guys probably know, 5 points is a very big difference on the LSAT, and I'm trying to figure out what could have happened.
So it's not.
Or
that's static. That's noise.
Yes.
That's completely random variance. Now, it is a big deal because law schools are going to only care about whatever your highest score is. So yes, and if 159 was the highest, if that's your highest LSAT, that's a hell of a lot better than 154 as your highest LSAT. But there's nothing going on here as far as like, why am I underperforming or why did I do so much worse on the official? You didn't. You statistically, you actually didn't do worse. It's just completely variance. So you need more data points. You should never plan on taking one official LSAT. You were talking about the November test. I mean, if you were ready for the November test, which I don't think you were, because I don't think a 159 is good enough for most people. I mean, I think you should be shooting higher than that, more like 165, I think. But if 159 was going to get you to the right school at the right price, which that's possible at some regional schools, especially if you have good grades, maybe that you were going to be able to get a full ride with a 159 and your 4.0 or whatever at your local regional school. And if you're happy with that, then you shouldn't just be taking the November LSAT. You should be taking the November test and the January test and the February test and the April test and the June test if necessary. You should plan on, once you start, you should exhaust all your attempts if necessary because of random variance like this.
Yep. Let me tell you what a sudden score decline looks like.
Okay.
Took a practice test on a Sunday afternoon. Scored a 179. It was the best I ever scored.
Nice.
Over the moon. Monday comes around. I was going to drill like normal, but I was so happy with my practice test score. I said, you know what? I should do another practice test. It was after work. I hadn't eaten dinner. I was tired. Buzzed through a practice test. 167. 12 points lower day to day. But what I want to highlight there, Nathaniel, a individual test score is just a reflection of how you did that one day on one test. Maybe you were a little tired. Maybe you were a little grumpy. Maybe you misread something.
A little lucky.
Maybe you had a great day. Yeah, maybe you got a little lucky. Maybe you're feeling particularly sharp. Maybe, whatever it might be. It is one data point that is suggestive of a range, but should not, you should put basically no weight into it.
Right.
And you should continue to say, did I understand the question that is in front of me? And if you continue to ask yourself that question, do I know how to solve this question that sits in front of me? If you continue to ask yourself that question, the score is going to slowly creep up, not literally, not in a linear fashion, right? Lots of ups and downs because there's a range. And you will continue to get better at the test.
Yeah. I mean, even, Josh is telling this story. It still impacts Josh. We can tell Josh is still wounded by this devastating 12-point drop. But even that's not crazy. Like when LSAC reports your score and they report that 4-point, the 4-point band, they're not saying that this is 100% of the band. They're saying, okay, so within one standard deviation or whatever, this is what this number means. Okay, but there's 2 standard deviations or 3 standard deviations before you get to 99% confidence. So people have, it's funny because people think that their observed data points are 100% of their range, but your observed data points are a very small sample of your actual range. So, Nathaniel, if you took another test tomorrow, it wouldn't surprise me if you scored 148, but it also wouldn't surprise me if you scored 165. I don't know yet. The only thing we know is that you aren't perfect. You know, there's a lot of upside here, a lot of room to grow. You are making lots of mistakes. And if you clean up those mistakes, your entire range will go higher. But that doesn't mean that any one data point within the range is necessarily going to be higher. Your good days should be better. Your average days should be better. And your bad days should be better. But you're still going to have good days, regular days, and bad days. So, and luck does play a big part of it. You know, some days you narrow them down to a 50-50 and you just happen to pick the right one. Other days you narrow them down to a 50-50 and you happen to pick the wrong one. Or at your level, you know, you shouldn't be finishing the sections. There should be several at the end that you're just randomly guessing on. If not, that's a big problem, Nathaniel, because if you're finishing the sections and scoring in the 150s, like that's just bad strategy. You need to do fewer questions with higher accuracy. But if you are guessing on some of those questions at the end, you're going to get 1 out of 5 of them right on average. But lots of days it's going to be 0. And lots of days it's going to be 2 or 3 out of those 5. And that also puts variance into your score.
And it is all okay because, as you said, Nate, they only take your highest score. So that variance will break in your favor as long as you continue
Nathaniel,
to do it
you've got 4 more bites at the apple here. If this is a recent email. I mean, you're emailing us about the November test, which is a long time ago. But you've got 4 more bites at it. So maybe you're registered for April. If not, that's fine. There's a test in August, September, October, and November. And only the highest one of those is going to count. So study hard now, get your practice tests up as high as you can get them, but acknowledge there's always going to be a range, and the variance is actually your friend because there's downside variance and there's upside variance. And with 4 more shots at it, all you need is one of them to get a little lucky, you know. Hopefully you keep prepping, you get your practice tests up into the mid 160s, and then you exhaust the rest of your attempts if necessary. I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Yep. Thanks for writing in, Nathaniel. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.